It also can sometimes act as a pilot brewery. I don't think that's the intentional act of it, but we'll create something cool here, or Steven and Brendan will create something cool here. People will like it, it'll catch on, and we'll start bottling it. It's a lot of fun.
So you just brew it.
This originally had a printing press in here. I think it was built in 1902. So the Swift Printing Company was in here through the 60s, and then much like pretty much every other business in St. Louis, they fled to the county in the 60s, and downtown St. Louis sort of turned into a pit. In fact, if you've seen the movie Escape from New York with Kurt Russell walks right down that alley, walks right across the front of our building, and there's an empty little patch across the street where Air Force One crashed. So that was what downtown St. Louis looked like. It looked like post-apocalyptic New York. Tom Schlafly told his friends that he was not only going to open up a brewery in the hometown of Anheuser-Busch 20 years ago, but that he was also buying an abandoned, burnt-out building in a part of St. Louis where no one in their right mind wanted to go to. They thought he was pretty crazy. But things have worked out. We're still here. All sorts of other businesses have moved in. Tom often says he's not going to solve world hunger or world peace with what he's doing, but he has made 2 zip codes better as a result of moving in to areas of town, moving into old buildings and sort of repurposing them to turn into cooperage provides something like 95% of all of them in the world. So they're in our backyard. So when we started doing this project back in 2006, the deal is with wine, people have been wood aging wine for a very, very long time. They know what they're doing. They know if they go to a cooperage and give them a recipe for how to toast the inside of the barrel, they know exactly what effect that's going to have on the wine. They know what it's going to do 20 years out. In beer, no one's been doing it for very long. So we're all experimenting and tons of people are doing it, but no one really knows what that ultimately means. So since 2006, what we've been doing is we've been getting different levels of toast from them. We get a heavy toast, we get a medium toast plus, we get a normal medium, and then we get an untoasted. So that's just how much char is on the inside of the barrel. So every year our batches of barley wine, they go into 4 different types of barrels. And when that batch is done, it all comes out and they take intricate notes. They take all sorts of tasting notes. They even see how many times they can refill the barrel so that it still gets taste. So all this stuff is getting documented. But then at the end of it all, they just blend it all back together. So we only have 1 vintage of each of these because we're not at a point where we can say, you know, this is the heavy toast version and you know what to count on for this. What we're doing though is they're putting a big, big paper together that's going to be published in conjunction with World Cooperage after another year or 2. And once that's published, breweries across the country are going to be able to look at this thing and they're going to know what kind of effect different types of toast on wooden barrels will have on their types of beer. It was up until this year, in the middle of this giant concrete pad here, a giant metal boiler that went all the way up to the ceiling. We finally this year brought some people in and they cut the thing apart piece by piece and pulled it out of here. And we cleaned it up, put some lights in, and this is going from boiler room to our spoiler room. So this is the home of our new sour beer program. Sour beers typically take a couple years to come to maturity. At some point fairly soon, this program is really going to kick up and you'll see this room filled with stuff. And once we get to that point, we'll start putting sour beers in our 750 milliliter bottles and selling them. We are actually under our beer garden upstairs right now. These are the old coal chutes where the coal came in. And this room here is under the street. So this is actually just a very cool example of old St. Louis architecture. You will not see brick vaulted. I mean, that's not even legal to do anymore. But it's absolutely beautiful, and I've seen some of these old bricks. They all have St. Louis etched into them, because I guess St. Louis at one point was the source of like all brick in the Midwest and heading this thing from scratch, the Suck-O-Matic. And what it does is you put your thumb on here and you hit the I suck button, and you can pick up 12 of those empty bottles, and you pick them up by their base and you set them in here. Then you hit the I spit button. And this thing shoots up and cleans them out. And so then you can lift them all back up and put them and get ready to fill them. So this was his solution to figuring this out. He made this thing from scratch. He's got a thing in the other room that he made from scratch, literally to clean and fill casks, which apparently cost about 15 grand in R&D and everything for him to come up with and build. But no piece of equipment like this exists in the industry. So if the guy just patented the thing, he could probably go retire somewhere. But instead it's just sitting in the other room and they use it and no one really knows about it.
And do you want to give him credit? What's his name?
His name is James Ottolini.
He's from here?
He is from here. He is from here, and he runs the show over at our other brewery. And this thing does them 4 at a time, and that's how every one of these goes. We'll have 3 guys in here, filling them, wiping them down, drying them, and then they put a little date on the bottom of all of them, and that's how this stuff goes out. We actually just did something new. We do some collaborations. We made this exclusively for the Whole Foods here in town. We're good friends with the beer buyer over at the Whole Foods here in St. Louis. And this is just for them. And it's an organic rye bock that we just bottled last week. And this is in very limited amounts. You will only find this in St. Louis. We have also done a series of anniversary 750s. This being our 20th anniversary, we're doing 4 different ones. And each one is brewed by a different generation of our brewers. So this was the volume 1. It was an Imperial Pilsner. And it was our first 3 brewers, one of which wrote basically the book on homebrewing. His name's Dave Miller. He was our original brewmaster for the first 3 years. Our second one, we did a hot toddy, which got people really, really excited. Again, Otto came up with this, and he decided to reverse engineer a hot toddy. So what you have is local honey, lemon zest, and some stuff. It's bourbon barrel aged. I mean, he literally tried to take apart what a hot toddy is and turn it into beer form. So there is talk right now, this was received so, and it's weird. It's really weird, but it's really, really good. But this was received so well, this might become part of our barrel aged series next year. So alongside the barley wine and the bourbon barrel imperial stout would be this hop toddy. These are basically in the St. Louis market. They go out over to KC and a little bit into Illinois. But all of the really small batch stuff we do here, it's pretty limited. Our head brewer here at the Taproom, Stephen Hale, poured some oatmeal stout, got some coffee, and got some raspberry puree, and sat there in a pint glass and just sort of did some guesswork on amounts and got something that he thought tasted pretty good, and then he's like, now we will use math to scale that up. We don't really use adjuncts and stuff like that. If it's our coffee stout, it's real coffee. If it's our raspberry hefeweizen, it's real raspberry. If it's our pumpkin ale, it's real pumpkin and squash and stuff like that. And that does make a big difference.